Popularity can ruin a game. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about how popularity has both affected different gacha games like Arknights, Genshin, Blue Archive, Honkai Impact, Counterside, Artery Gear, and Tower of Fantasy. And we're also going to be discussing just how badly and how negatively that can impact not only the game itself and its performance, but also the community and what lasting impact it can have. I think it's very common for popularity to really be viewed as a great thing for a gacha game, and in most cases it does have really positive effects. And more popularity means more growth, more advertising, more people know about it, more people join the game, the player numbers are pushed up, and ultimately the game ranks higher both in the App Store and the Play Store for whatever platform it may be on. And that in turn generates a bit more revenue because a lot of people are spending more money on the game. It attracts newer whales, and ultimately that is the end goal for a lot of gacha games, for every gacha game. But I think just like how individuals always say there's no such thing as bad press, there is bad popularity. There is a bad side of popularity. In my opinion, popularity can be generated by the consumers and users, i.e. individuals who are downloading the games themselves, maybe recommending it, just like how if you like Arknights, you would recommend Arknights to somebody who's looking for another game to play. And popularity can also be generated by the game itself via advertising, via its marketing methods, whether that be on Twitter, other platforms, or just sending out invitations for the closed beta test. All these do generate some excitement, and I think as of right now, everybody's looking for the next new gacha game, the next big one to sort of uproot the current gacha industry and kind of change things around, or at least to make some adjustments to a point where it's really a good contender for one of the top three. And I think we've seen some core examples. If we're taking Arknights for example, Yostar can essentially announce a newer game, or essentially anybody who's worked in tandem with the creation, development, and continued support of Arknights can announce a new game, a new gacha game, and because of their previous reputation and the reputation of Arknights itself, individuals are going to be a bit more excited for it, because they already know how to expect some degree of quality. And this, in my opinion, is overall good popularity because you're attracting individuals who are used to your product, who are used to your business model, and subsequently know vaguely at least what to expect from you. This isn't anything new, it's just dragging your current audience and your current fan base over to your new project in the hope that they may like it. I think in most scenarios, that's good popularity. Bad popularity, and we'll use Genshin for this example, bad popularity is when a gacha game becomes really good and really well known, but for the wrong reasons. Genshin Impact starting out was known as the Breath of the Wild clone, and ultimately, don't get me wrong, I played Genshin first and I played Breath of the Wild after. I prefer Genshin over Breath of the Wild, but I can see the visual similarities. That's hit number one. Hit number two was the Genshin community on Twitter. I believe the harassing of Totalia's voice actor was the first instance of Genshin Twitter being real bad. Hit number three was the leak scandal and all the copyright strikes and terminations that happened as a result of that. And it's just been going on and on and on. Now, I know a lot of those relate to Genshin Twitter, but I think the Breath of the Wild clone has never fully left Genshin Impact, and as a result, if you're looking at that community, it became such a mainstream title that when individuals hear Breath of the Wild clone, they're more inclined to try it. And guess what? Breath of the Wild is not a gacha game. So when talking about how popularity can change, if you have really good popularity in that sense, if you have the audience that's already used to your style of game, the audience that's already used to gacha games coming in, you see it's a positive effect. They know what the business model is. If they don't like the game, they just leave. But if you have individuals, hypothetically, we can use MTash since he makes a lot of Genshin Impact content and previously made content for like Destiny and other games like that. He may not be, or those players who really kind of vibe with him may not be used to gacha games. Genshin was my first gacha game, and as a result, when you come into a game like that, you aren't used to the gacha system. You aren't used to pity. You aren't used to rolling. You aren't used to evaluating the banners and evaluating the value of certain units. You're used to just playing a game. And as a result, the systems and the implementation and the time and resin system in the game really feel like they're gating you for no real reason. And this is what I think is negative popularity. Because ultimately, you would have a really good game, a really solid game, but if you attract the wrong kind of people, whether they be the individuals who are going to get mad at every single decision you make, whether they be individuals who end up hating gacha games as a whole, it doesn't matter. Because of the way Genshin blew up in terms of popularity, a lot of individuals have a pre-existing opinion of the game because they've either interacted with the fan base, they've seen or heard random rumors, or just because of how popular the game is, they don't want to try it. I've spoken to individuals who associate every Genshin Impact player with somebody who absolutely adores Klee romantically. And I've spoken to individuals who've never heard, who really just never looked into the game itself. I've spoken to people who play the game actively and hate it. And yes, there's a variety of mindsets, but the fact of the matter is people don't know Genshin because of the gameplay. They know Genshin either as the Breath of the Wild clone, as the game that attracts people who like Klee, or just as a bad game with a bad community. And because you are far more likely to hear a negative opinion on Genshin, I believe it's far more easy and far more acceptable to hate on a game, no matter the circumstances, than it is to like a game and talk about the positives of it. It's really painting a bad picture. I could rant for 30 minutes about how I dislike something in a video game or how I dislike Arknights' way of storytelling, but ultimately, it's a good game, and people are more inclined to remember the negatives than they are to remember the positives. If we're talking about Blue Archive, it's relatively unpopular. It's not necessarily the most focused on gacha game, and because of that, it's kind of slid under the radar. The community who plays it are dedicated, they know the mechanics, or they like the characters, and everybody's kind of chill with one another. As the community and as the fan base expands outward, you have the problem of there being so many people with so many different viewpoints that you're going to have sections of the fan base argue with one another, or perhaps just not get along, or one crowd does something off key. And every single little interaction impacts the fan base, not directly by hurting one another, but by changing the reputation that the community and the game itself has. If Genshin Impact was not as popular, it would not have as many issues. I'm not talking about content-wise, I'm talking about in terms of what the community does. If Genshin Impact was the size of Arknights, or Honkai, or the size of Blue Archive, and that was the community, the game would be much better. But it's because of its growth that it's worsened. In the same way that when Arknights released, it was the biggest gacha game, and then once a couple years settled, the game fell a little bit and the community chilled out. And this inversely impacted games like Tower of Fantasy as well. Tower of Fantasy has had really rough marketing overseas and in its global release. From being marketed as a Genshin killer to having many individual instances of plagiarism and things like that, the reputation has just fallen. And it's still a good game. I personally don't play it. I tried it, it wasn't my cup of tea, and that was it. But ultimately, it doesn't detract from the fact that the popularity of another game dramatically impacted this game's viewpoint, and that game's players, Genshin players, moved over to TOF hoping it was a good game, or hoping it was a game like Genshin, and didn't, or maybe perhaps weren't expecting what they got. As a result, have the numbers dwindled? No, but the thing is, when you have a lot of individuals who come into a game expecting something entirely different than what they actually get, whether that be for misleading marketing or just rumors spread around, or simply because they heard about it and thought it would be fun, the ratings of your game drop lower. The player base declines rapidly because you have so many people entering and so many people leaving that it just looks like it peaks and then falls. And ultimately, it can force developers to sort of push out content to sort of match that. I think on the surface, it's good to have a popular game. It's always good because it brings in revenue, it brings in new players, and that's what you want. You want a growing community. But I think the question remains after that is, can your game support it? Is your business model good enough where the vast majority of players who come in will stay? Are those individual players who are new to the game, are they new to your games, or are they new to Gacha as a whole? And what would the reaction be to the concept of having to pay money possibly for newer characters? If those questions either are answered negatively or not answered at all, you can have problems. So I think that popularity is, under normal circumstances, increasing. It's good, it helps the game, but it can be a slippery slope in which one fall or one slip up, whether it be that the developer or the community, can dramatically come and roll downhill and get worse and worse and worse and worse. It's why individuals choose to steer clear of the biggest popular gacha games, because it's much easier to focus on yourself, much easier to have a nicer time just by playing the low-key ones that kind of got forgotten or maybe are just hidden gems. So if you have a hidden gem, tell me in the comment section down below. My name is Chica, I hope you've enjoyed. Consider subscribing, leaving a like, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.